Sorry about that. Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, so today I wanted to do a video of my podcast recommendations. For over the past couple of years, I've been listening to podcasts, as I'm sure you have been too. But recently I've come across a few new, or to me they were new, and even some that I want to say it's been like 6 months of their last video, and that was like the original start, so I would consider that new. So yeah, today I'm going to be recommending some podcasts. I want to do all different genres, from fashion, film, entertainment, to political, law, social commentary, pop culture commentary, and like what I would like to call self-preservation, self-regard, mental healing podcasts. So they're not a lot. These are just the first round that I've been kind of listening to lately. I have my OG podcast and some others that I haven't tapped into, but these are just like what I've been listening to lately. So first up, let's start with something fun. Fashion interviews, fashion commentary. I would say one of the podcasts that I have recently been listening to is On the Cutting Room Floor, and that is hosted by Recho, Omondi. I'm sure you have seen a clip of her podcast, because she actually went viral for her interview with Yasin Bey, which is also known as Mos Def, where she asked him the infamous question if he considered Drake to be hip-hop. And we all know how that went. Like, it went viral, and I can't highly recommend her podcast enough. That was an artist. She just a little bit about Rachel. She's actually a New York fashion based designer, and what she's doing over there with her interviews, like I listen to, I'm kind of late to her podcast. Like, she has over 3 seasons that are free, available on Spotify. But she does have a Patreon, which I am going to support. I do want to get through those 3 seasons, and I've been like flying through episodes. My last episode, I checked out her interview with, and this was like, I want to say a few years ago. She did an interview with Brian Phillips, who is the CEO of Black Frame PR agency, and it was so good. Like, if you don't know, like, I used to be a fashion girly when it comes to like corporate working in fashion. So just hearing some of the names, like, and I have checked out of fashion, like, I'm moving into the film industry, but I want to like start getting back into like fashion when it comes to my hobbies, and just reliving her interviews have like sparked names of that I forgot about.
I'll never forget that day. I know the street I was standing on in London, and it's because I decided to wear heels to work, and I had no business wearing heels to work. You were one of those. Yeah, because I thought I was going to be that intern. No, I wore flats subsequently every day after. Yeah, a little pro tip to anyone listening: if you want a fashion internship, do not show up in heels. This is not the hills. This is not the hills. Very, very good reference. So then, how did Emma connect you to industry? Emma connected me to industry because Jens, who she has subsequently married actually, was the founder of the Saturday Group. Under the Saturday Group, he had several businesses, incredible businesses. Wednesday Agency still exists, an amazing PR company called Relative MO. One of the things he had under his umbrella was a magazine called Industry. He came from a magazine world. Industry magazine, you guys, this is very important. It's spelled Industrie, not Y. One of my personal favorite magazines. Oh, thank you. And it's one of the most brilliant publications. But so you met Emma at your internship. She was dating at the time the founder of Industry magazine, and she suggested that you work for him. She had said to me when she hired me to be an assistant, because at this point I wasn't an intern anymore, I became office assistant. She had said that I was the best, and these are her words, not mine, the best intern she'd ever had. And she wanted me to succeed, and she wanted to see me succeed. So this is a whole year on. I'm in this, I'm fully the office.
It's just like things that I totally forgot about. Like right now, I do not know who a creative director is at what house. So just hearing her interviews is like bringing things back to my recollection. I also highly recommend, like, if you don't really know a lot about fashion, like, check out her interviews, because she goes into the back story of like different people that work in the industry, and she drops names as she's talking to these artists, and it's really dope. She mostly does fashion interviews, but she also does like interviews with artists, like musicians and stuff like that. So yeah, I highly recommend it. Oh, Christopher, I'm gonna link some of the interviews that I like. Her Christopher John Rogers interview was really good, and she was like really like, can you explain what this is? Like, she knows what it is. And I also learned that she went to the same fashion school that Christopher John Rogers. I'm actually wearing Christopher John Rogers dress that he did his collaboration with Target, and they talk about that collaboration on that interview, which is so good. So I highly recommend. Next up is Fashion Neurosis, and this is something that I found this out this week. Like it popped up on my algorithm. The interview with Bethann Hardison. If you don't know who Bethann Hardison is, she was a runway model, a fashion agent, and then also just like an activist. She has a documentary on Hulu called Invisible Beauty, and like, she's an OG. Like, she is Naomi Campbell's fashion American mom. She basically like chaperoned Naomi Campbell, because I think Naomi Campbell moved here when she was like 14 or 15 or something like that. But Fashion Neurosis, it is hosted by Bella Freud, and she is also a London-based fashion designer. And I didn't really know a lot about her, but she has this podcast where she interviews different people in the fashion industry, and they sit on her couch. They sit on a couch as if they're going through a therapy session. She also has I gotta check out this one, but she has an interview with Zadie Smith, and I want to check that out. So I am new to her channel. She has a YouTube channel and a podcast, so you can find that on Apple Podcasts, or I know it's for sure on Apple Podcasts. The Cutting Room Floor is only on Spotify for the first 3 seasons, and then her Patreon, which I will be supporting. I think it's like $6 a month for Recho Omondi's podcast. But this is on YouTube and on Apple Podcasts. So if you want to just watch the YouTube channel and see it visually, that's cool. But also, I like to like listen to things where I'm not able to like watch something, so I like to listen to the podcast. But I highly recommend checking that out. I've been loving what I've seen so far, and the information, like she interviewed Bethann Hardison, and like just like the gems and like just stories.
And you modeled in the historic Battle of Versailles fashion show that 5 European designers and 5 Americans, and 10 of the 36 American models were women of color, and including you and Pat Cleveland and Norma Jean Darden. And your show was fun, and it had great music as well. And you described this thing of stopping at the end of the runway and defiantly staring into the audience. And I wonder, what did you want people to feel when they saw you?
Yeah, that was a moment. Even when if I speak about it, you speak about it, I think about it. It was, still I remember doing something for the BBC, and I remember telling them about it. And the way I was just explaining it, I just broke into tears. It really was a moment. It was because we were rehearsing a lot, and we had these 3 days, and we were the underdog, and It started out to be like a community effort. That's what Eleanor Lambert and Miss Francois de la Renta, which was Oscar de la Renta's former wife. She's passed away. But that's what they wanted. They just wanted to have this opportunity to do something that's so brilliant. And it would benefit the Marie Antoinette Theater and the whole of Versailles. But what wound up happening is once the media in France start to hear about it, they start to say, what are these American designers coming here? They're just sportswear people. They could never compete. And they started using the word compete.
Right.
Against our, couturiers. Well, we weren't trying to compete. We're just going over to do a show. And then it went on. And that's when it became the Battle of Versailles. It was never the Battle of Versailles. That was the French press. So by the time they finished dogging us, even the support we had from America, editors started dropping out.
Really?
They weren't interested in coming and being embarrassed.
No.
It was something. Only person I think was Mary Lou Luther, and I think Bill Cunningham. Those are the two I remember.
Oh, Bill Cunningham.
Yeah, they were sticking to it, man, because they were curious. But there may be another one. I don't, forget, maybe someone else, but those two I remember clearly. And I promise you, it was like getting there and doing it. I've never, as a model, and I was a runway model, never really a print girl. I never had the fortune to be able to just be that, a model. I always had a full-time job when I modeled. So I, being Stephen Burrows' assistant as well as his fit girl, I had to pay attention to Stephen. And also Anne Klein, she had asked me before we left America to work with her and help her. I'd go and leave my office from Stephen and go and talk to her because she was doing a certain kind of collection.
Bethann walked the Versailles. If you don't know what the Versailles battle of the American and Parisian designers, like that was like historic and America won. Like our fashion designers won. So that is like a good story to like check out. I highly recommend checking out Fashion Neurosis. Okay, next one. I just started tuning into this one. This is of a YouTuber. Her name is Jasmina, but her YouTube channel is called Jasmina TV. She just started a podcast not too long ago, and it's called Fashion. And she's the host, and she does it with her friend.
You can't control people's perceptions of you. Someone might see you as the beauty queen that you are, but another person might just see Eileen Warhouse with a Dumb and Dumber haircut melting as a man.
It is what it is. Reality is somewhere in between.
The big thing that's happening in the fashion world is all the creative director switch-ups. Everyone's moving house. J.W. Anderson, out.
Bye.
Pro and the Schooler boys.
Don't call them boys, though. They're like 40.
Men. I know a lot of people call them boys, and maybe they take offense to that, but I feel like when you get up in age and you're no longer a boy, you kind of like being called a boy.
They're men. They're adults.
So these two adult men are now going to be the new appointed men of Loewe. First thought was...
Why?
No, my first thought was, who the hell are their agents and how did they pull this? How did you do this?
Oh, lies, stunts. You were skeptical.
I said, this is a publicity stunt. Stuff like this doesn't happen. I guess it does.
Because they're not relevant.
Their heyday was probably early 2010s. I mean, I could argue that it has been a little bit relevant. We see it at Dover Street. And we're often like, why is this at Dover Street?
Yeah. They must be paying for the retail space.
What is the Pro and the Schooler point of view?
Quirky with a twist? I don't know.
Oh, it's quirky? Where's the fun? Where's the surrealism? Where's the quirkiness? Where's the weirdness? I see it more along the lines of like a contemporary The Row, if anything. I want to see the project, actually.
They had to do a project.
They're hilarious. Their first episode is called Are We Haters? I think that's what it's called, or something about like we're haters or something like that. And they're very brutally honest, but also what I like about them is that they drop names. So they're very informed about who is coming out of a fashion house, who's entering into a fashion house as creative director. And that's a great way if you don't kind of know the behind the scenes information about fashion. Like it's like putting me back in the loop of like understanding, because fashion magazines are expensive, and like I don't know, I guess you can go online. I do have subscriptions that I subscribe to via email. So you can do that, but some of these are behind a paywall, and girl, I don't got time for that. So I like listening to these podcasts because they're very helpful. So I do recommend checking out. It's called Fashion. Next up, this is actually somebody that I recently found out about like 2 weeks ago, and this is her second season of her podcast, so I'm late to the game. I actually found out about her from another podcast that I'm going to mention a little later. But as we're sticking on to fashion, the next one is Your Favorite Auntie, who is hosted by Marjon Carlos. If you don't know a lot about Marjon, she is a fashion girly. She is an award-winning journalist. She has been featured in Vogue and Elle magazine and ID magazine, Vanity Fair, the list goes on. And she has a lot of good interviews on her channel.
I also want to talk about another moment with you that you also made headlines as well. Miss June, you recently did an interview with Complex, and you were talking about dandyism, which I loved. I loved the conversation. And because it's the Met Gala's theme this year, and you had admitted that you had never been invited to the Met Gala. But that did not detract from your impact on this industry.
So many people haven't been invited.
Exactly.
So many people.
But we're talking about you.
That's really sweet.
You went viral because people were incensed.
Wow.
What was your reaction to their reaction?
I was a little embarrassed at first because I was like, oh, did they misunderstand? I was like, did it come off like I was bitter, or did they? I had to sit with it for a bit. It was a little embarrassing because I was like, oh God, I don't want to make a thing about this because I understand what, it is, and I thought I was clear, but it definitely made my heart smile after I got past like the, oh my God, I made a thing about this, and now I'm like looking like, like I'm whining about not going, and everything else got shadowed with me saying it is a fundraiser, the board members all look like us. Everyone on the board looks like me. It's their role, not others, to include me. And if I'm not, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Also does solo interviews, which she'll like talk about pop culture stuff and fashion stuff. And she's like well versed. Like she's dope. She's really dope. But I'm new to her channel and I'm just getting caught up. She also did an interview with Christopher John Rogers too that I loved, because when I first found out about her, I just like went through because I saw she had 2 seasons, and then I saw his interview and I was like, let me click on this, and I clicked on it. I loved it, and I've been like listening to things ever since. And I still haven't gotten through the 2 seasons yet, so that's really good. So I think she said next season she's coming out with merch, she's doing more things, so I'm really excited to see like what she's doing with that, so that's cool. So next up is going to be Film Entertainment. This is a podcast that I have learned so much from. Like I told you, I am transitioning into the film industry, television industry, and this podcast has really helped me. This is called the Screenwriters Rant Room, and it hosts Hilliard guests. In the past, older episodes was also hosted by another 2 hosts. It was Lisa Olakaja and then also Chris Derrick. But right now I think it's only Hilliard guests right now. But nonetheless, you can go back. There's so many episodes that they have. I think they have like over 500 episodes. I don't even know how many, but they have seasons and seasons of episodes, and you can get so much game from that. They talk about acting, writing, directing, producing, showrunning.
Everything should be good, right?
Yeah.
But you still say you're on the ground hitting the pavement, even for a big show as massive as Cross. Talk about that.
That's a great point, because I think that was the mistake I was making when I did my short film, which, you know, that was a labor of love, passion project. Had no idea what would come of it, but I did know that nothing would come of it if I didn't promote it. But I didn't have any problem promoting that. Because I just felt like I got to get the word out. Cut to years later.
Were the stakes higher?
The stakes of the short film,
because
I mean, it felt like it was higher. It was like, think about all the
life
people who
death.
volunteered. It was life and death, and all the people most of the people who worked on that short did it for free. I mean, literally, Kimberly Browning was like, the only people you can pay are the sound and the catering. You have to have food, and people need to be able to hear this. Everybody else was doing this for free. So now, if I don't get this thing in the festivals, none of that work gets seen. None of that passion. So, and then I don't market myself. I don't get myself out there and maybe actually do something that could help me further my career in a way that helps me stay. And that short did that. So I showed up to everything happily, enthusiastically. I was pushing that rock. Cut to years later, I'm doing my first show on Amazon. It's called Hand of God. And we had some good promotional thing there. But at that point, I'm just sort of like, oh, it's the machine. Right. And I don't want to go out there and answer the same questions over and over again. And I don't want to, you know, be telling people what I was thinking about when I came up with this. I just want them to watch the show. And I didn't. So that's what that was. Then, but then when I came full circle, and Lachelle and Silva really kind of broke it down for me in terms of how this game works. And I went right back to that mode. Like, this is my approach. And I also went back to that mode of, you know, thinking about it, like reminding myself everything you do is a passion project.
Working with, you know, musicians or people that do the score, graphic designers, VFX designers, like the list goes on and on. I have learned so much from them. So I highly recommend, even if you just want to hear someone's commentary about the industry, or sometimes they'll just talk about, they have like one episode that's like, it's Beyonce, bitch. Like, it's just like, they talk about what's going on in entertainment, mostly film and TV, but they will trickle down to like a little bit of social commentary with entertainment as well. So I highly recommend. Okay, next up is going to be political and law commentary. So this podcast, I want to say this is I think the podcast came out last year, if I'm not mistaken, but Native Land Podcast. Its hosts consists of Angela Rye, Tiffany Cross, Andrew Gillum, and I freaking love this podcast. Like, you could tell they're like really friends and almost like brother and sister, because they always kind of like going at it a little bit. But I learned so much when it comes to like the law, the judicial system, because Angela was a attorney. I don't know if she still practices, but she's an attorney. Tiffany Cross is a journalist as well. She used to work on CNN. She had her own show. She also has a podcast as well, a solo podcast. And Andrew Gillum, if you don't know, he actually was running for governor of Florida, and Ron DeSantis kind of took that over. So yeah, but nonetheless, that podcast is really helpful in just like keeping everyone up to date. Sorry about that. keeping everyone up to date on what's going on.
I had questions for you about your topic.
I'll try to tee it up in the smaller way, which is simply to say, we all warned about Project 2025. We did an episode on it. It is very clear that Russell Vogue is 1,000% committed to his mission. And whether people know it or not, this is a person. Elon Musk is being sidelined. But all the reporting that I have seen, the man behind the curtain all the while is still Russell Vogue. And so this person, who is little known, little advertised, little talked about, is deeply cinched in the federal, in knowledge about the federal system. He worked for a U.S. senator. He's been a policy director. He's worked in the nuanced details of budgeting of the federal government, which is what frightens me the most about his position within this administration and the power that he's ascended to, because he's exactly the type of person who knows how to bring it all down.
In America, when it comes to, and not just America, sometimes they'll talk about other countries as well, but I really feel like they do a good job of just like informing us of what's going on. So I highly recommend Native Land Podcast. Check it out. Next up is Holding Court with Ebony K. Williams and Dustin Ross. I freaking love this podcast because I didn't even realize like how much the law and pop culture is intertwined. Like Ebony, she finds a really good way of like keeping it fun, but like also talking about pop culture stuff, but from a lawyer's point of view. And I freaking love it. And then like Dustin is so hilarious and it's just very informative. It just shows how like there's so much range with, it's so much range. It's so much
like
range.
Everybody else though, I've sat in celebration and admiration for what Shannon has built in the last several years regarding Club Shay Shay. And like you say, it's a cultural impact.
Yeah.
It can't be overstated. I think most of us had seen that the most immediate preceding headline about Shannon Sharpe was that he was about to walk into a $100 million podcasting contract, which made sense. If Joe Rogan's making 100 or 200 million or whatever the fuck the number is at this point, if old girl on Call Me Daddy is making 100 million plus, I mean, if this is what the blockbuster culture shifting podcast numbers look like, first of all, I don't know where the invitation is to Holding Court's $100 million podcast. Anyway,
but our hands are waiting to sign.
On the dotted line.
I'm walking around like this.
So if that's what the whites that are doing that level of number and cultural drive are getting, Shannon Sharpe absolutely should be making the $100 million. So that's what we were all kind of teeing up for. And that was the narrative around Shannon Sharpe, was that he was coming off of an award-winning year. You know, I know he won the NAACP Image Award. I think he just won 2 Webbies because there's both Club Shay Shay and also the Nightcap Show with Chad Ochocinco. So it was looking all, what is wrong with me? Why was I about to say looking all gravy? And we know that girl called that baby gravy.
We'll get to the kinks in a minute.
We're going to get to the kinks in a minute.
So the podcast, it's just so much range when it comes to this podcast of like funny and like when they banter, it's just like, it's so funny. Okay, so the next podcast I'm like, I don't know where I was at. I recently found out that Nicole Hannah-Jones had a 1619 podcast. I did not know about this. It's only 5 episodes. The first 2 episodes you can get on Apple Podcasts, but after that it is behind a paywall. It's right now they have a special for $3.99 a month. And child, I'm gonna listen to it one more time because I flew through it, but I need to re-listen to it. And it's so good because Nicole is not the only one that's kind of hosting or narrating. It's other people, and it's almost set up like a documentary style podcast. It is so informative, so good. It just really shows you how American chattel slavery really has a lot to do with everything that is occurring today, and how everyone who fought to emancipate all of the enslaved Black people in that process, and how the law of that is still something that we are dealing with today. Like, it's just like, oh my God. And then there's a story like this, the last episode, yo, I was like shooketh. And if you saw my last video, Wooden Nickel, girl, when I tell you, there is a scene. I'm gonna try to see if I can insert some clips.
This is my family's legacy. This is what I am good at. I've been doing it since I was a little boy. I mean, never once would I ever give up farming.
Adiza Egan, why don't you pick up where you left off? So June and Angie Provost have been struggling for years to keep their sugarcane farm going.
It was a repetitive cycle, pretty much. I mean, late loans, underfunded, over-collateralization.
And they say it's because they can't get enough money from their bank, called First Guarantee, to run their farm.
It's a trickle-down effect. If you can't plant all of your acres that one year, you're going to feel it the next year and the year after that. If you can't fertilize your whole crop, what kind of yields are you going to make on that acres?
And he can't just go to another bank to get the loan, because he says other banks have told him that he's in too deep with First Guarantee. He's put up pretty much all of his assets as collateral.
So what am I was supposed to do? So I did go to the USDA and ask them to apply some pressure. I need my crop loan. I need to be in the fields.
And so June turns to the federal government to complain. Basically, when a farmer goes to a bank to apply for a crop loan, the bank then turns to a local branch of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Because even though the loan is provided by the bank, the USDA will step in the event that the farmer can't pay back the loan. So the local USDA office has to sign off on it. But when June goes to his local USDA office, they say there's nothing they can do.
It was almost every year that
yes,
you go
every year I would have to complain because every year the crop loans would be later and later.
And then on this one day in May of 2014,
that's when everything came to a head.
Everything came to a head in 2014.
June finally started to get some answers.
Well, I was at the shop working, just trying to get equipment ready, trying to set up everything for fertilized season. So when I get the crop loan, everything would be ready to go. And I got a phone call and it was the USDA's number.
He gets a call from a local USDA employee named William Husband.
He said, June, he said, you have a second? I'm saying, like, sure, Mr. Will. I'm like, what is wrong? He said, do you realize that you're the only farmer in this parish, in this office that's going through what are you going through? He said, no other farmer is going through this.
William Husband is named as a whistleblower in June's lawsuit against First Guarantee Bank. And the lawsuit claims that Husband, who is white, made it clear that this was about racial discrimination. When we reached out to Husband, he couldn't comment and referred us back to the USDA where he still works. But this is what June and Angie say happened.
He said, come to my office as soon as you can.
At one point after that phone call, William invited June and Angie to come to his office.
I mean, I can remember that. William looking quite disheveled.
Yeah, he was nervous and red. I remember that.
Where he showed them June's files.
He said, I want y'all to sit in my office. I'm going to close the door. And he had all the files already on his desk from every year. He said, I want you to go through all of your files and pull out what you need to pull out, and I'll make copies for you.
And June says that what he saw in those files clarified for him what had been going on with his crop loans.
He said, do you realize that First Guarantee Bank is photocopying your signatures? And I'm like, wait, say that again? He said, yes. He said, First Guarantee Bank is photocopying your signatures.
And this is to USDA guaranteed loan application.
And not only photocopying my signatures, they were changing the loan amounts.
The lawsuit claims that First Guarantee Bank had been changing June's loan applications without his consent, reducing the amount he's asking for, leaving him with less money to run his farm.
He said, like, I'm shaking. He said, I'm shaking. That's how he kept saying it. He said, June, I'm shaking. I said, Mr. Will, I'm shaking. This is like crazy.
There is a story of this farmer in Louisiana. And when I tell you it's an unfair wooden nickel moment that highlights a bigger problem in our country. But again, wooden nickels, like, I can't emphasize how much, like, centers and the wooden nickels just really, like, it just shows, like, you're not crazy. These things are happening. They shouldn't be happening. It just blew my mind. It blew my mind what was going on. Yeah, so I highly recommend 1619 podcast. Check it out. Okay, so that wraps up political law. So let's go to, like, pop culture, social commentary. First thing up, I found out about this podcast this year, and it's called Vibe Check. It stars 3 hosts, Saeed Jones, who is a writer and poet, Zach Stafford, who is a journalist, and then also Sam Sanders, who is also a journalist, and they kind of intertwine. I know that Saeed and Zach both worked at BuzzFeed together at one point in time, and I can't remember if, I think also somebody else worked at NPR at the same time. I think maybe Sam, I can't remember, but Sam is also a journalist as well. He went to Harvard, like, for grad school. I'm like, bro, like, and they're so funny.
And Viola Davis have always been pretty transparent about how Hollywood treats, you know, the Black people doing this work.
Well, and this is the thing, you know, Franklin has discussed this online and in that podcast, and other folks have said the same thing. When Quentin Tarantino released Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, he got a similar deal where the rights of the film came back to him. All the coverage was great for Quentin. Yeah. Isn't that wonderful? And now you see headlines when it happens for Coogler saying, is this the death of the studio system? Mm-hmm. Zach, you were tied to this industry. What is your take on this?
I mean, it's so dark-sided because also it's being reported that this Variety piece that kicked off this negative coverage was a planted piece, meaning that PR teams pitched it in and had it framed that way. And the reporting that I've been following, it says that when Ryan Coogler made it a big deal that he got this deal, Warner Brothers executives who were going through a really tough time, David Zaslav was just given this huge profile, I think in the Times, that man who runs Warner Brothers.
Into the ground.
There's a whole thing, but it's a whole piece about that. Right. And so they're on really shaky ground. And the 2 executives that run Warner Brothers film division are really like, this year they may get fired if they do not figure things out. Mm-hmm. So if it's being told in the industry that, yeah, they have wins, but they have to give up equity in the movie so that the studio doesn't make money in perpetuity, that also isn't great for them if it's just how all the creators are coming.
I found out about this podcast from another podcast that I'm going to talk about in a few, and I just loved it. Like these are 3 Black queer men who are just talking about, they also talk about political issues as well lately, especially last year. I'm going back to all of that. I kind of like, I haven't finished all of it, but like I got farther back because I just be like skimming, just going through these podcasts, girl. They're so entertaining and really good. But they did an update on everything with the election last year, and it was just so good. Like already being in the present of this election, but then listening to everything in the past and just seeing how everything came to fruition. It's just so crazy. But I love Vibe Check. I actually have a hat, which is really cool. I should have got it, but it's okay. So Vibe Check, check it out. You're going to love it. It's so good. Next up is the OG podcast. I have been listening to this since they started. It is The Read, starring host Kid Fury and Crystal. Yo, when I tell you, I'm going to insert Miss Tina's interview because that's what actually made me buy her book, because I was like, this interview was so good. And they also did a review on
great-grandparents, etc. Went through shit like that. Like, you just went out on a Saturday night and half your family died, and it was nothing about it. Nobody went to jail. It was no process. You simply never saw them again. It's just...
You don't talk about
the trauma them people have gone through. But what I was going to say is that what really stuck out to me was that after Sammy had a night where anybody else would have went and laid on the cross directly.
Yes.
He went back to that church. He went back to his daddy's church and said, I actually am going to keep doing this. Anybody else would have said, Christ Jesus, I'm a sinner. It's real bad. I need this to never, ever.
Daddy, hold on. Excuse me. I'm just going to lay down on this cross.
I'm just going to, if you just excuse me, choir.
That was funny to me.
Over a little bit. I'm finna go lay down.
That was funny to me.
Hilarious, and I freaking love. But I love Crystal and Kid Fury. Like, just to see their journey, it's just very inspiring. They do pop culture commentary. They do a segment where they have guests ask questions. And then they do the read where they cuss somebody out at the end. And it's just so entertaining, and they're well rounded, and it's just so good. So the read, I'm sure all of y'all know about the read, but that's my OG. I always tune into them every week. For the most part, I try to. Next up is Higher Learning Podcast, starring Rachel Lynn Lindsay and Van Lathan. I am kind of late to the game. I did not know that they had a podcast. I started listening to them, I think, in 2023. Yeah. And they been had this podcast. I was like, where have I been? So yeah, I love their podcast.
I was gonna say there was a teacher, Mr. Neubauer, and he let me direct in the 6th grade. He let me direct a play. He passed away. He's gone now. But in the 6th grade, I was in. We had moved out here, and I was talking about the fact that I wanted to be in the movies, and he let me direct a play. And I'll never forget that. It was a fun situation. I didn't know that you could direct a play. I didn't know what that meant, but I directed a play in the 6th grade, and then that was like him and he took me to Sizzler. We talked about the direction of the play. He told me how to direct. He gave me the whole deal. I always think about that guy. He didn't live to see, us win the Academy Award or anything like that. But just after that, I knew I could do it. Mr. Neubauer.
It's beautiful. I mean, that is what teachers can do, right? They can give you a sense of possibility and expose you to things you never otherwise would have considered.
They're well versed as well. They talk about everything from politics, social commentary, pop culture commentary. They do interviews. They did an interview. What the hell is his name? I am going blank on his name, but I'm going to insert his name here. That interview had me rolling, okay? It had me rolling. And I love, they can hold their own. That's why I love them. What the hell is that politician name? He was a Republican that was running. And he could not say that it was race. Larry Adler, I think that's his name. He could not say that the reason why they don't want him and they want Trump was because of, he wouldn't say that. He just was like, it's because it's Trump. And it's just like, oh my God. Just stop. But anyway, yeah, Higher Learning Podcast, so good. Of course, we know Rachel from The Bachelor. I never watched The Bachelorette, but I did know she was the first Black Bachelorette. And then also Van Lathan from, cussing out Kanye and on TMZ and everything like that. So check out Higher Learning Podcast. It's so good. They also have YouTube channels. Some of these podcasts also have YouTube channels, but you can check out this on YouTube and the podcast. But sometimes I like to check it out on YouTube because the visuals, they show things and it's hilarious. But yeah, Higher Learning Podcast, check it out. Okay, next up is another OG podcast, which is The Friend Zone. The Friend Zone is part of the Superpower friend group of the Reed, Kid Fury, Crystal, who else? Jade of all Jades, Kia, all of them, y'all know. XD, I love XD. He's so funny. But yeah, this is what I've been listening. They all have podcasts as well, but these are just the podcasts that I've been really listening to.
That was Gayle King.
With their scam.
That was none other than Gayle King after she reflected on her 10-minute space trip on Blue Origin's New Shepard launch vehicle, which was a trip to space that she took on Monday, okay, with Jeff Bezos' old lady. And another young lady named Amanda.
Space, they say.
Amanda,
you don't think it was real, friend?
No, it looked like CGI.
So she was on there with a bunch of people,
shenanigans.
and like Kim Kelly. And just a little blurb from the article about what it is covering says, the miraculous wrinkle erasing, acne fighting cream is the result of decades of horrifying medical abuse, right? So this is a little true crime and reality crossover a bit in this episode, right? And I had to call in the big dogs, you know what I'm saying? Because we need to talk about it and get to the bottom of it. So a little bit from the article as a foundation, and then we can kind of go from there. Before Retin-A was approved by the FDA in 1971, it had been tested on hundreds of incarcerated people in Philly as part of a long-running program that was led by a dermatologist named Albert Kligman. So are you familiar with him, Lauren? Yes. Albert Kligman, right? Okay. Mm-hmm. So apparently between 1951 and 1974, Dr. Kligman and his team, they experimented on scores of vulnerable people, a majority of whom were Black and being held in the now closed Holmesburg prison. And their goal was to produce pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, and also chemical warfare agents. And they were testing these. Some of the male test subjects endured what they called patch tests, in which untested creams and toxic chemicals were smeared on their backs, their faces, their arms, as well as biopsies of their flesh and organs, mysterious injections, and a host of other medical procedures. One former participant told the author Alan M. Hornblum that the quote was, "I got a needle in my spine for $7.
Asante and Dustin, they are the three hosts of this. Sometimes they do interview, they do podcast commentary on, pop culture. And then I love their shoot the shit episodes because it's always hilarious. Dustin brings the comedy. Asante brings like that tech, just like cool vibes, music exec vibes. Like, he's gonna be an A&R one day. I can feel it. And then Fran is like, she gonna give you your mental healing, woo-woo, just earth queen mama beer vibes. Like, I love them. And it's just like well versed. Like, I love the podcast. It keeps me grounded, like you got your funny stuff, you got your tech stuff, music stuff, and then you got your grounding stuff. It's just like, it's just a great podcast. Okay, last podcast is one that I just found out as well. And it's so crazy because the way I found out about this was because this girl was being bullied on the internet. And it was so weird. And that's how I found out about her, because another podcast talked about how it was just crazy. This podcast is called To All the People, and its host is Janelle Roberts. And when I tell you, it's just like, this is what I would call like self-regard, self-preservation. Just she just really, sometimes she does interviews as well, but she really kind of gives you like that pep talk that you need to kind of get through what you need to get.
We get to where we want to get to. Repetition is a good thing. Repetition is how we become a star. Repetition is how we achieve our goals. Repetition is how we become a better version of ourselves. And if you're like me, and if you're someone that's been kind of going through a difficult time right now, I want you to understand that abundance first starts in the mind. If you feel like you're kind of like in this repeated cycle, or you feel as though it's really difficult for you to see better days, to see the light at the end of the tunnel, if you feel like it's really difficult for you to find love within yourself right now, find the reason or the will to keep going, find the reason or the will to show up every single day, then this episode is for you. And I feel like out of all the episodes we've had this season, I feel like this one is like very personal to me, because I feel like sometimes when we are kind of in darkness and we feel like we're surrounded around darkness, it can be very difficult for us to see the other side of it. It can be very difficult for us to pull ourselves out of it. And the reason why I wanted this episode to be called Abundance First Starts in the Mind is because this episode is about clearing out the mind, getting rid of the dump, taking out the trash, And most importantly, it's about learning how to give yourself space and to be kind to yourself, because we don't need to allow any negativity in. And we have these sensors in our brain, in the left side of our brain, that are constantly telling us we're not enough. And we have a tendency to give up on new habits or new beginnings or new exercises or new workouts or new routines because there's something in us that's telling us that it's not going to be worth it, and it will be worth it.
She's a straight shooter, and I love it. Like, even like her incorporating the things that have happened to her, it's just really good. And I forgot to tell you, so I found out about, that concludes all of the podcasts that I've been listening to lately, but I love that how I found out about Vibe Check was because I was listening to The Friend Zone and an ad for Vibe Check came on there. So that's how I found out about that. Then I was listening to Vibe Check and they shouted out your favorite auntie, Marjon. And I was just like, wow, I love how like this little ecosystem is just like well versed and like different, but like they're all giving out information like that's good. Like they're not like, it's not a gossip, and I don't have a problem with like some of these podcasts that like kind of like talk about things. I get it, like we all kind of like want to be informed about stuff, but like I want to be educated about things. I want to learn something. I want to come from the conversation saying like feeling inspired, and all of these podcasters do that for me. So that concludes this video. Let me know what you listen to, if you check out any of these podcasts, or if you will check out any of these podcasters. Also, please like, comment, subscribe, give me a thumbs up. I need this for the metrics. It really helps me to like be in the algorithm. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you on the next one.